Hi, I'm Renee Hiatt of American Quilter Society. Welcome to episode 2 of our Modern Victoria Hunter Star quilt. In this episode, we are going to go through the cutting that we need for the quilt. There's a link in the description where you can download the entire pattern. And we are going to start on page 2 where there's a diagram that's going to show you how best to cut your half-yard fabric. And that's what we're going to start with. So in this episode, we are going to go through the cutting of our fabric. So we will be using the Quilter Select 8.5 by 24 inch ruler. This is a fantastic ruler. It's a great size. Being at 8.5, it allows us to cut wider strips. In our project, we're going to be cutting 7-inch strips, so therefore it's really important to have the 8.5 inches. Otherwise, we'd have to double ruler. But why when there's this fantastic ruler out there? I'm also going to be utilizing the rotary cutter by Quilter Select. This is my favorite. I like the 45 millimeter. They have a 60 and they have a 28. I love the 45. It's just perfect for me. I'll be showing you how to utilize it in this series. And Quilter Select has this fabulous product that helps you move your ruler. Because of the technology that keeps it so it sticks to our fabric, sometimes it can be a little bit to move it, and the ruler handle helps us with that. All right, so I have my nicely pressed fabric from our last episode. I'm going to lay it out flat on my mat. So I'm going to take my Quilter Select ruler and line it up on the edge of my selvage, moving it over. Even though I have that straight raw edge, I want to clean it up. So with my Quilter Select rotary, I'm going to click the button and pull back the guard to allow me to cut. Now you'll notice it exposes a very full amount of the blade, which allows me to keep my wrist straight when cutting, as opposed to some other rotaries that cause you to have to angle it up, which puts pressure on your wrist. But here I have an exposed blade, and you'll notice that my ruler is not slipping because it has that fabulous technology, that grip on the back. And now I'm going to line up my 7-inch. Just going to turn this around. I'm going to go righty on you now. And I'm lining up the 7. So the 7 is marked, right? That's the joy of having this 8.5 inch ruler, is that I have 7 inches. I make sure that it's lined up completely all the way to the top. And then I'm going to, once again, click the button, pull back the guard, and then go ahead and cut. To close it, you're just clicking the button and you tap, tap, and it's closed. Really easy. All right, so now I have my 7-inch strip. While I have my fabric laid out here, I'm going to go ahead and cut my 2 1 3/4 inch strips. Then I'll do the subcutting of my squares. All right, so similarly, I'm going to line it up. Now, something I like to do when I'm cutting something that's not quite a solid measurement, such as 2, I line up to the 2, and then I pull back to the 1 3/4. That allows me to make sure that I'm cutting the proper size. We can all find the 2 on the ruler, but sometimes we have trouble figuring out which of those lines are the 3/4 lines. So go ahead and go to 2, and then move over to the 1 3/4. All right, and so I'm just going to cut. You'll notice that you don't really have to walk up too much on the ruler because it has that non-slip technology. And then I can just move with the ruler, I can move my strip. All right, now I'm going to go to 1 3/4 again. I'm going to go to the 2 and just slip over to the 1 3/4. Notice how the ruler handle is allowing me to move this grippy ruler without much trouble. All right, and then I'm going to cut. And then this is going to be put aside. I try and keep that neat as well. I'm going to put my strips aside. These are going to be for my trapezoids. And now we need to cut our squares. So very similar. we're going to clean up our edge. I like to cut my salvage off. You're going to get 6 7-inch squares out of each of our half yards. So I'm cutting off my salvage, and then I'm moving over to the 7, and I'm going to cut, and then the 7, another set of 7, and cut. Just going to move these over. And then you'll notice you'll just get out another set of 7-inch squares here. All right, that's waste. Now we're going to cut these in half. So I go ahead and turn them, and we're going to go point to point. And you'll find that your Quilter Select ruler really grips these nice and easily. And then I like to place my cuts on a plate, especially when I'm working with multiple fabrics. This allows me to stay nice and neat and keeps my fabric nice and neat. So I'm going to go point to point. And the last point to point. So at this point, you're going to have 12 half square triangles. Next, we're going to subcut our 2 1 3/4 strip that we cut from all of our half yard fabrics. So you have 11 fabrics that you cut those 12 half square triangles, and now we're going to go ahead and subcut the 2 1 3/4 strips that we have from all 11 fabrics. I'm going to be using the Rapid Fire Hunter Star ruler. It allows us to strip piece the making of our Hunter Star quilt. Often you have to paper piece or use Y seams. However, with this technique, there is none of that. We're going to strip piece. You're going to find that it's really simple. On the ruler, it is marked. There are multiple sizes, but it's marked for your trapezoids. We are going to line up with the 7-inch trapezoid line. That's going to be on the bottom of our strip. So I'm going to take our strip, and I'm going to, if you are a righty, you are going to start off on the left-hand side of your strip. And I'm lining up that 7-inch trapezoid line on the bottom of my strip. Now, if you're a righty, you're going to take and come up the right-hand side, and then I like to take a step and come across and do that second cut. You're only going to need to do that on your first cut. And that gives me my trapezoid strip. All right, so I have 2 here. I'm just going to place them in my plate. You'll notice that my Quilter Select handle also works on other rulers, and it works fantastic. All right, so I'm now going to turn my Hunter Star ruler around 180 degrees, and now I'm lining up that 7-inch trapezoid line with the top of my strip, and I'm going to cut. You'll notice that I'm closing my rotary cutter each time to make sure that I don't accidentally hit it. Safety first. All right, so next I'm going to turn this back around, and you'll notice that we're going to get 6 trapezoids from each of these strips. All right, so I'm lining it back up with the just cut edge and the 7-inch trapezoid line on the bottom. And there's also a 7-inch top dotted line that's hitting the top of my strip. And I'm going to cut. This is a remnant and can be put aside. And I'm going to put my last 2 trapezoids on my plate. So now I have 6. I have 12 half square triangles, so therefore I need 12 trapezoids. I'm going to take the lefties through this cutting. You're going to start with cutting your trapezoids on the right-hand side. The lineup is the same as the right-hander. I'm going to line up the trapezoid 7-inch line on the bottom, and I'm going to go ahead and cut, take that step, and cut. That's going to give me 2 trapezoids. And then I'm going to turn my ruler 180 degrees, and I'm now going to line up the trapezoid 7-inch line on the top of my strip, and I'm going to go ahead and cut. Place that on my plate, and now I'm turning it back around and putting the 7-inch trapezoid on the bottom. The 7-inch top is going to hit the top, and I'm going to trim. If you happen to run into any problems, you'll notice if you open this up, you can sneak out an extra one. You know, sometimes they disappear on us. So we have some more fabric in case we need it. So for each of my half-yard fabrics, I have 12 half-square triangles, and I have 12 trapezoids that were cut for the 7-inch unit. You are going to continue working your way through. I like to stack up my plates through all of your half-yard fabrics. All right, so next we're going to move on to cutting our strips from our background fabric. So I have my background fabric, and it's nice and neat. It's been kept wrinkle-free, so I'm just keeping it over here. I know sometimes many of you get a little concerned with having to handle 2.5 yards of fabric, but you'll notice how neat it has stayed, and it's really easy for me to keep. Even on a smaller sewing surface, you should still be able to manage the 2.5 yards of fabric while cutting these strips. We are going to cut 22 2¼ inch strips, and those are going to be width of fabric. So I'm going to clean up my salvage. Now I've been going back and forth left and right-handed on you. I'm a little bit ambidextrous, but that's one of the great features of the Quilter Select, is that you can be right or left-handed or both like me. All right, so next I just cleaned up my edge. I am going to line up 2 1/4. So similar to how I cut my 1 3/4 strips when I was cutting my half yards, I'm going to do similar. I'm going to line up the 2, right? Easy for us to find. And now I'm going to move my ruler slightly to the right so that I get to 2 1/4. I'm going to check to make sure I'm lined up properly. It looks good. And now I'm going to go ahead and cut my strip. I can move that off with my ruler and come back to 2, move it to 2 1/4, check to make sure I'm straight, and go ahead and cut. I'm going to continue cutting the rest of my 22 strips, and then we'll be ready for our next episode. In that episode, we're going to begin our block construction. So see you next time.